Welcome to New York's number 2 sports show. The Rangers beat the Vancouver Canucks 5-3 on Salute to Sam Day. So that was the highlight of the day was Sam Rosen getting his win, a third period win by the Rangers, but they were really, really bad. I mean, really bad. They did not deserve to win this game. Give them a little bit of credit for having some fight in the third when Vancouver had tied it multiple times. Rangers did respond with goals to retake a lead. First period was specifically embarrassing, with Rangers only had one shot on goal. They're outshot 11-1. Igor Shesterkin was the reason why this game had a chance for as long as it did. But the hero of the game is Jonny Brodzinski, who has been in a year that has been not very good. Brodzinski has, I'd say, been more of a positive than a negative when you consider expectations. And Jonny Brodzinski with 2 third-period goals, he gets the game-winning goal. He has 9 goals in the year. And Pierre Laviolette kind of threw the lines into a blender. After the first period, he basically switched it up. So we'll talk about that. But the Rangers were outshot 39-12 in this game at home. If they'd already lost the first 3 games in this homestand, the final game, I mean, they find a way to get it done. And Vancouver, they had a couple of injuries pre-existing and in-game where Elias Pettersson and Nils Höglander did not return. They left the game, I believe, after the second period, didn't come back for the third. As I mentioned previously, Philip Hedl sadly is dealing with a concussion, so he was unable to make his MSU return. So Vancouver's a bit shorthanded. And they're in a Western Conference playoff chase. For them, this had to be a frustrating loss because they deserved better. Look, not a great game for Kevin Lankinen in the sense that not that the goals were particularly awful, but the fact that he only faced, 11? He faced 11 shots and gave up 4 goals. So pretty ugly stat line wise. It's a 636 save percentage. But Igor was really, really good. It's kind of too bad that he deserved a better fate almost, but the save percentage still comes out good at 923, allowing 3 goals on 39 shots. But what it does is it, as a fan, it keeps kind of a little bit of intrigue there. And the Rangers now have a 3-game West Coast trip that starts with LA against the Kings. And that, to me, you can get me back. If you somehow win that game, that is going to be a brutally tough game to win. The Kings are amazing at home, like out of this world good. If the Rangers somehow find a way to scrap out 2 points out of that game, then get me. I'll be back on board in terms of really thinking that the playoffs are a legitimate possibility with 11 games left to go now. What'll be 10 after that game. So yeah, this game does not change my opinion as far as where this team is at. This was a game that they deserved to lose, but found a way to win. That sometimes happens in hockey, right? You get some good goaltending, a bounce goes here, a bounce goes there, and you find a way to win. As far as the lineup was concerned, defensively, unsurprisingly, was the same as I thought it would be, with Carson Soucy playing against his former Canuck team. They kept that, so Vakanainen continues to be a healthy. 2 games are a healthy scratch. Calvin Hahn, I'm not even sure how many games it is at this point. Hahn's been healthy scratch for the last 7-8 games, give or take. I can't recall the exact count, but he is clearly the number 8 defenseman. So the pairs in this game were, how last game it was kind of more a mix where like Fox was sometimes with Miller, sometimes with Soucy. This game it was more Fox was with Soucy, and it was Borgen with Miller, Jones with Schneider. My thoughts on the D pairs are this: I thought Adam Fox had a really good game. He was a +3, had a goal and an assist on the night. And I just felt as if he, was among a lot of bad players. I noticed him in a positive way. Carson Soucy, he was okay, I guess, by virtue of playing with Adam Fox. Again, it's kind of that Ryan Lindgren effect. But again, Soucy does kind of worry me. He does, in watching him. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done with him. And I again, I think that Vakanainen gives you a better chance of winning currently than Carson Soucy, and maybe even DeHaan. But again, not worth getting into that. So that's how I think about that pair. Miller Borgen, look, Will Borgen continues, he's been very steady out of everyone, right? Of course, there's going to be some bad moments along the way, and we've, discussed those, but Borgen has done a nice job. Kendrick Miller, it's kind of up and down, even in this game, where we'll talk about it, where he gets a goal, which was kind of a lucky goal, but you got to give him credit. He got a goal. And the next play, he kind of messes up a little bit. But again, we'll talk about that when we discuss the third period. I'm not a fan of Joan Schneider. Um, you know, it's better than what it used to be last year. If they were ever together before that, I don't like that as a pairing. So, um, if you really wanted to beef up the top four, I think your best bet would be to honestly maybe put Schneider on the left with Fox, see how that goes, and then kind of go with like a third pairing of like Zach Jones with take your pick and give that kind of minimal minutes. I know that's maybe not like it is good to kind of balance out the pairings and I think there's something to be said for that. But if you really were in a spot where you're just desperate to win games, that might be where I'd consider going because I know Braden Schneider, he's done all right on his offside. We've seen it at times, but I don't know. So just defensively as a team, I mean, the Canucks had just time and space. Quinn Hughes, I mean, those Hughes brothers are awfully, awfully impressive, right? I mean, we see Jack Hughes a lot with New Jersey, but Quinn Hughes, like, wow, as good as Kale McCarr, and I'm impressed by Kale McCarr, Zach Werenski to a slightly lesser degree, and he's fantastic. But Quinn Hughes, like, whoa, this guy is a game changing player, um, and as good as Adam Fox is, and I'm talking like peak Adam Fox. It's just you can't compare that. That's just not even. It's a different thing. So as far as the forwards, they started it out, and I don't really understand this. They went back to Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere, and thus it was Cooley, Miller, and Zibanejad, with your third line being Carrick centering Kreider and Brodzinski, and I believe the fourth line was Parsonen centering Offman and Rentby. So Matt Rentby's back in. That illness is over, and Brett Berard was the healthy scratch. If it were me, I would choose. I would continue to choose Parson. Taking Kreider out of the equation, I would choose it to be Parsonen, and I do think that we will see Parsonen. Maybe even next game or soon thereafter, being a healthy scratch. There's kind of a rotation, right? Between at this point, I guess it's kind of a rotation between Berard and Parsonen, mostly with Offman kind of mixed in there. But the lines end up changing. I'll jump ahead, right? Because what ends up happening is in the second period, they go with some lines that end up actually being quite kind of interesting. And the biggest thing about this is you move Zibanejad back to center. And so now you have a more competent third line center, whoever you choose that to be in the packing order, JT Miller, Vincent Trocheck, or Mika Zibanejad. I'm not sure how it ended up kind of netting out as far as who got the least of the bunch. Um, I guess it would appear to be Zibanejad, which I guess kind of makes sense. But here's what they were: it was JT Miller centering Lafreniere on his left side, and Brodzinski. So Johnny Brodzinski gets a chance to play and takes advantage of it. Plays with better players, more offensive-minded players. And then the next line, Vincent. So you have Panarin and Trocheck still together with Brennan Offman, which is just good to see Offman get that chance. And I thought that Offman, who got his first NHL point, it was taken off the board, but then they gave it back to him. Well deserved, I think. Like he didn't play much, but he was noticeable, making things happen. And so he gets a point. So interesting to see him get that chance. And then that leaves you with Kreider, Zibanejad, and Cooley. Um, which again, like kind of sucks for Mika in some ways, although he gets to play with Cooley, which is a good thing, but back with Kreider is not great. And then the fourth line is at that point, um Parsonen, no, Carrick in the middle with Parsonen and Rempe, which it makes sense. Sam Carrick, I thought, had a really bad game when he was on that third line. It was brutal. Carrick is out of place on the third line. He's not a third line player. He's a good fourth line center, has been really effective in that role. So I know it's kind of unfortunate because Zibanejad has been really, honestly, one of the Rangers' best players for the last couple of months and looking really good in the wing. And I think that in a pinch, you can do that. But I do think that for matchups and just stability down the middle with Miller, Trocheck, and Zibanejad, I think that gives you just a better look, honestly. And it gives you more of a chance to roll three good lines. I mean, that third line with Carrick centering it, it's pretty rough. So don't be shocked to see this stay the same. I mean, but hey, Lafreniere of JT Miller Brodzinski, like that was the most impressive of all of them. But I also like that you're giving Othman more of a chance with Panarin and Trocheck. Again, Zibanejad is the one that kind of takes the hit here a little bit, but it's not like it's all lost. It's not with Cooley on it. Even with Crowder doing what he does, it can be effective enough. For me, the switch I would make next game is maybe get Berard in there, take Parsonen out, and have your fourth line be Berard, Carrick, and Rempe. I think that can be semi-effective. But anyway, first period, and we've seen, taking aside the fact the Rangers are not good at MSG, which they have not been, especially lately. Rangers have not been good historically in these pregame festivities ceremony games. It's quite bad. And that may be the case across the league, right? You kind of, and it was a matinee game. It's no excuse. The Rangers, again, cannot be playing like that, considering the fact that they are, in a playoff race, even though at times it doesn't feel that way. But they came out so bad. Vancouver was just dominating at every single turn, unbelievably so. And eventually, just jumping to it, because again, Vancouver outshot the Rangers 11-1 the first, and to the point where when the Rangers did get shots on goal early in the second period, they were getting mock cheers. Don't blame the fans. Literally, they were, every chance they got, they would, cheer the Rangers when they would get a shot on goal. But it would be Dakota Joshua scoring his fifth goal of the season from Quinn Hughes. And who got the other assists? It was Nil Zaman, who got the secondary assist for Vancouver. And just really a very simple, easy goal where it was the fourth line that was on for the Rangers. Parson just in front doing nothing. Susie, again, a little out of position, and, letting Dakota Joshua just get space on him and, just kind of whacking away where Quinn Hughes made that play happen. Matt Rempe goes down. He kind of took Rempe's ankles out, if you will. Kind of an embarrassing look. Who Rempe is really not the greatest at staying on his feet to begin with. He's gotten better at it, but nothing that Igor could do. An easy goal for Dakota Joshua in front gives the Canucks 1-0 lead. This could have been so much worse. It really, really could have been. So we go to the second period, and then things kind of get a little bit more interesting in this game. And again, keep in mind, this is JT Miller's first game back against Vancouver. So there's a little extra meaning there for Vancouver's side, for him. You got that going on a little bit too. And at 2:05, Drew O'Connor and Sam Carrick are both called for roughing. So you get 4-on-4 there. At 5:56, Matt Rempe holds Connor Garland. And before that power play ends, Igor Shesterkin is called for roughing Kiefer Sherwood, which was the right call, but it got the crowd going. Igor, who again is understandably frustrated, getting no support from his team at all the last few games, nothing. And he's been in there for each one of them. So I think he was just frustrated. It kind of got the crowd going and the team going a little bit. Kind of was maybe a slight turning point. And then so it's a short 5-on-3 for Vancouver. And then once that is over, Jake DeBrusk is called for roughing Vincent Trocheck 8:03. Kind of felt like the Rangers were throwing a little bit of a bone there for the fact that, and the officiating wasn't great in this game, but not going to get into that too much. But it becomes 4-on-4. Basically, the Rangers only had a 17-second power play after the Shesterkin penalty ends. So basically nothing. It goes down as 0 for 1, but the Rangers actually tried a very much different practice power play units, which we did not get to see in this game, but we will see it, I guess, presumably next game if the Rangers draw a power play that gets, some action to it. But so we're not going to talk about this episode, but expect to see changes, legitimate ones. It's broken up now into 2 units. It's not like one heavy duty one. They kind of split the difference a bit. So we'll see how that looks when it happens. But the Rangers do, though, kind of against the play, right? Like Vancouver at this point really still is controlling play. The shot count, which ended up horribly disparate, was still that way at the time. But Adam Fox scores his 6th goal of the season from Braden Schneider and Brennan Othman. So Othman gets his first goal. His first point of his NHL career, not goal. But this was one where the combination at this point was Lafreniere, Miller, and Othman, not Brodzinski. And it had Fox and Steiner. So I think that, I don't know if it was like during a line change or kind of a post power play thing, one of the two. was going on here, I think. Um, and it's just a nice play. Lafreniere kind of gets it around the boards, and often makes a little play, just enough of it to get it to Braden Schneider, who takes a shot for the point, and Adam Fox actually kind of roaming around towards the net area, but still far out, tips it in. So a nice goal by Fox. JT Miller was kind of causing a little bit of a screen as well, where Kevin Lankinen probably didn't get a good view on it. And the Rangers tie it up at one. Then at the end of the second, in 1914, Vancouver ends up with the power play. Roughing minors for Jake DeBrusk and Will Cooley, but Cooley gets the extra two for cross-checking DeBrusk. So the period ends with Vancouver starting has a little bit more of a power play goal in the third period, but 1-1 after two. Rangers very fortunate. But a good start to the third period for the Rangers um, as the Rangers kill off the remainder of that penalty to Will Cooley, and then they take their first lead of the game. And it would be Jonny Brodzinski scoring his eighth goal of the season from JT Miller and Alexis Lafreniere at 139. And just a nice play where Lafreniere takes it into the zone, it gives it to JT Miller, who goes behind the net kind of and finds an open Brodzinski in front. Just a quick kind of north-south type play that gives the Rangers a 2-1 lead. However, um, and the Rangers, and you could feel like Vancouver was coming, like they were going to tie this game up, and sure enough, they do. And it's kind of new trade acquisitions, and a player that I didn't mention yet, a former Ranger who was involved in the JT Miller Filipino that factors into this goal. It's Drew O'Connor, scoring his 10th goal of the season, the former Penguin, assisted by Amon and Victor Mancini. So Victor Mancini, who looked like he could be a player for Vancouver. He really could. I think that was a player the Rangers, ideally didn't want to have to get rid of, but that's the way it works when you get a player like JT Miller. And it was basically Mancini making a play around the net. And it was Jones and Schneider that were on for this goal, as well as that aforementioned JT Miller Lafreniere Brodzinski line. But just a play where Mancini goes behind the net. He finds, I guess it was Amon maybe for the first opportunity to it. Um, and Igor makes the first save, or maybe it was O'Connor. Maybe O'Connor did get the real shot. And it takes a bad, unlucky deflection for the Rangers. It goes off of Braden Schneider's skate right onto the stick of O'Connor, and he just buries it home. Nothing Igor could do on that one. And it ties it up at 2. However, a very quick response to the Rangers. Only a minute and 18 seconds later, Keandre Miller, so another defenseman getting on the act, Keandre scores his 6th goal of the season from Vincent Trocheck and Will Borgen. So it's a pass from Borgen in the defensive zone to Trocheck, who makes a nice play to find Keandre. Very nice creativity by Trocheck. And Keandre looking to make him play in front. It was not a shot by Keandre Miller, but it goes off the skate of Quinn Hughes and in. But give credit to Brennan Othman for making Hughes have to defend him like that, and it allowed for Keandre to just put it towards the front, and it goes off of Quinn Hughes and in so the Rangers retake the lead at 3-2. However, it was 2 minutes and 30 seconds later, Vancouver ties it again. And so Keandre on the one hand gives the Rangers the lead, but then he hurts them on this goal. And it's a little bit unlucky, but again, it's Keandre. We've seen this sort of stuff from Keandre. Brock Besser scores his 23rd goal, assisted by Jake DeBrusk at 15-10 on a off of a face-off one in the Rangers zone. A little bit of cycling is done, and Brock Besser just kind of goes behind the net and curls towards the front. Keandre really has to drop the stick because I believe he broke his stick. I think he's the reason for that. And Brock Besser just sort of slides it under Igor. Out of all the goals Igor gave up, that's probably the one he'd want to have back. But again, he was the reason why the Rangers were even in this game. So it ties up again at 3. But sure enough, only 37 seconds later, it's Brodzinski again. Brodzinski's 2nd goal of the game, 9th goal of the season from Lafreniere and Carson Soucy. So Alexis Lafreniere gets 2 assists, and it's Soucy with the pass, and Lafreniere takes it in with a little bit of speed on the left side and finds Brodzinski to his right, and Brodzinski just fires it home and in. Jonny Brodzinski, it's a great story. It really is. He is, again, surprisingly, one of the longer tenured Rangers, one of the few Rangers that was around during the David Quinn era. Hard to believe, and it took him a while. He was in the Los Angeles Kings and San Jose Sharks organizations. I believe those were the only 2. Could have been another one, but I think those were just the 2. And now Jonny Brodzinski finds himself with the Rangers for a fifth season. Now, the first like 3 years was mostly Hartford, not all of it, but most of it. Really, starting last year, he became an NHL only player. And it's really like I'm more and more impressed when I watch him. And you want to be careful about it, like him being in this situation, like him playing with Lafreniere and JT Miller. That's not something that's going to be happening for an expansive amount of time. But for now, I don't mind it. He's extremely, extremely versatile and has a nose for the net. He has some speed, likes to shoot the puck, and it gives the Rangers a 4-3 lead. And then things get a bit dicey as Vancouver pulls the goalie and the Canucks, Quinn Hughes especially, tons of chances for Vancouver. Things get close, but eventually JT Miller, fittingly against his former team, fires home the empty net goal from basically behind the Rangers' net. It's his 17th goal of the season, assisted by Adam Fox. So the Rangers take the 5-3 lead. At the 20-minute mark, I didn't even realize it at the time. Juuso Parssinen was called for cross-checking Nils Aman. But yeah, Rangers win 5-3, being outshot 39-12. Just crazy, crazy stuff. One of the least deserving wins you'll see, but a win nonetheless. And again, I feel good for Sam Rosen that this was a day that he was celebrating. He could at least celebrate that on his day. That was nice that they were able to at least, get the win for him. And so now the Rangers' playoff hopes, are still realistically alive. And it's going to be interesting, and it's this 3-game road trip, which starts out against the Kings. And I really think that that is going to be such a tough test. Right now, as I'm recording this, the Kings are up 6-1 at home versus Carolina, right? Who's obviously Carolina is one of the best teams in the league. The Kings are going to improve to 24-3-4, and then they play home against Boston. And honestly, that is a very likely win. So the Kings may be looking at a 25-3-4 home record going into this Ranger game. And not for nothing, the King kicked the Rangers' ass at Madison Square Garden earlier in the year. So expectations are really, really low for this game. I think the Rangers are going to have a very hard time scoring goals. The path to victory is really some grinded out 2-1 type of win. That's how it's going to have to get done, with Igor playing really well. And I assume he'll be in the net. The only reason I even question it slightly is because, of course, Jonathan Quick is a longtime King, but it's going to be Igor. That's just the way it is at this time of year. So that's kind of how I'm seeing this. I'm expecting them to lose that game, but if they somehow win, regardless of how it happens, honestly, even if it's not deserved, then you know what? I'm back thinking, all right, that this is a legitimate shot. The Rangers are really playing some very, very poor hockey right now, and hopefully them going on the road can help because they have been a better road team than at home. But they're able to salvage this 4-game homestand by finding a way in the third period. Jonny Brodzinski scoring a couple of goals, getting the game-winning goal, and a 5-3 Ranger win against the Vancouver Canucks.